Hello, I'm Violet Renee, and I'm here to tell a story. Living your true identity. I wanted to come in here and share my experience as a trans woman to help other people who are struggling with their identity, to help them maybe understand a little bit more that they're not the only ones out there and that you can only live your life for yourself and not for anyone else. And that's an important thing to learn. I grew up in a small town in Michigan of less than 2,500 people, little farming community, what we would call a bedroom community in the Midwest. Most people who lived there either worked farms or worked at General Motors Corporation, which my grandfather did. And I lived with a single parent home. I lived in a single parent home with my mother and my sister. From a very young age, I started showing signs of being different when I was as young as maybe 2, I believe my mother told me. It was very common. My family is documenters. They love to take pictures and video, and you can't find a picture of me around that age of 2 or 3 where I'm not either wearing a dress somehow or walking around with a sheet wrapped around me and a towel wrapped around my head for hair. I was always very feminine. I was very outgoing. I never was comfortable with anything that would traditionally be considered male. So sports were not a thing. Boys' clothes were not a thing. I would always throw tantrums when my mother would put me in a boy outfit. It just always felt very foreign to me. And that was very apparent to everyone. I made that very apparent to everyone. My mother was very young when I was born. I was born in '72, so I'm up there in age, of course. But my mother was born in an era where she was a teenager during the '60s, so she was very free-thinking, very open, very kind of hippie, laid-back kind of person. There was always incense in the house, and there was always lots of people. We were a very communal group of people, so she always had friends and family around. So she was very open to, different lifestyles, and she had quite a few friends that were gay, and which helped to foster some confidence in me because I did have a chance to see some people who were like me in some way, shape, or form. I didn't transition until I was 16 for the first time. That's a whole other story. But the first time I ever heard the phrase that I was different was I was having issues as a child, so my mother had therapists coming to see me, and around 9 years old, the therapist had talked to me, and I remember her walking into the other room and saying to my mother, "You have a boy that's a girl trapped in a boy's body." My mother didn't really understand kind of what she meant, but it really stirred something in me. It made me realize kind of even at that age that, aha, this is why I feel different. This is why I feel kind of like a caged animal. I always felt like I was being restrained somehow within myself. I did start to act out some, and that led me down the road of getting actually more therapy with an actual psychiatrist and not a social worker. And that was when I was first diagnosed with what was then called gender identity disorder. And that helped me to really deal with some of the feelings that I was having of being different. Because by the time I was 12, I was already identifying as gay because that was the only frame of reference that I had in my limited, mind at the time. But I was very fortunate that even though my mother didn't understand it still at this point, she had someone that was a professional telling her what to expect. And that led me to be, to around the time that I was 16 is when I actually started to, I just decided, this is it. This is the time. I can't live as this anymore. I have to be different. And so at 16 years old, I actually chose myself to start transitioning without any medical intervention in the beginning. I did, and around 19 is when I first started to actually take hormone therapy, which is now called HRT. And that started leading me down a road. I lived as a woman for 10 years, from 16 to 26. At 26, I was in a very dark place. I had a brief stint where I moved from Michigan to Indianapolis, and while I was there, I was living with a married couple that I had met while I was living in Indianapolis, and I was working at a private club. And I had been sexually assaulted, and I called my grandparents on the phone that night, black and blue and bloody, and asked them if they could come and get me. Now, to my grandparents, to credit my grandparents, they really were there for me. They dropped everything they're doing, and they were, of retirement age, so they were in their 60s, 70s at this point. Dropped everything, and at 3 a.m. they drove from St. Charles, Michigan to Indianapolis, Indiana, which is a more than 5-hour drive, to pick up their grandson who is in dire need of some help, and took me back home to live with them. And at this point, I was not working. I was living with my grandparents. I had no income. I was at a crossroads, and I decided, I can't live like this any longer. I have to be independent. I had always been an independent person, and it was stifling for me to be in that environment, not because it was a negative environment, because my grandparents were extremely supportive of me, and always gave me a roof over my head when I needed it. That was not the first time that they had rescued me. But I didn't want to burden them. I felt like a burden to them. So I decided that, this is not a good place for me. It was the mid-90s. It was very difficult at that time to be a trans woman. It still is, of course, but back then even more so. And I needed to work. So I decided to detransition, and I had the opportunity to move to Florida in 2000 and work. So I moved here to live with an uncle, and that's a month after I moved here to Florida, living as a male, found my job that I stayed at for almost 16 years. Well, there is a facet of my personality that I have found to be very fascinating to me, and to therapists have found it fascinating as well, that whenever I'm in a spot where I'm very unstable, Violet, who I am, she always comes to the forefront to basically save me. She's like Superwoman. And I was going through another rough patch where I wasn't happy at work. I wasn't happy in my private life as well, because I was living this life that was not me. It was not really, I chose to do it, but it was not really a choice that I would have made if I had been in a better frame of mind. And I realized that I was working at a job that I wasn't happy with any longer, because we had changed management and they were going in a direction that I was not pleased with. And I wasn't happy in my private life, so I decided to retire from the medical field. And my uncle at this time was declining in health, so I decided to take care of him, use my expertise and care for him at home. Because I don't feel that the nursing home environment is a good place for anyone. Not because it's a bad place, but because it's not home. And I think that was the main thing that I always heard from my residents, is that yes, it was a place to live and they were happy, but it wasn't home for them. So I didn't want my uncle to have to go through that. And this is also not the first time that I had taken care of a family member. So it was natural for me, because unlike many other people, I'm very close with my family. So they're a very important part of my life. They're the nucleus of everything I do and all decisions that I make. So I decided to retire and take care of my uncle, and we were trucking along, and I still wasn't quite, comfortable being Marvin, was my given name at birth. So around a couple years, maybe 3 years after I had retired and I was taking care of my uncle, I realized that I wasn't happy just being at home taking care of my uncle, which was rewarding, but I needed to do something more with my time, something more creative. And I had always been an artistic child, and makeup was always something that I loved. And I thought, well, if I can't be Violet out in the open, I can at least do things that Violet would like to do. So my uncle encouraged me. He helped pay my way, and I got a student loan, and I went back to school, and I got my certificate in cosmetology. So I'm now a licensed cosmetologist. And while in school, I have to credit my teachers that were there. They saw something in me that I didn't really truly see in myself, because I really blossomed while I was in school, because I was doing something that I loved and that I was good at, I had a lot of experience at. And while in school, though I didn't completely transition, I started wearing makeup to class, which was really, nothing unusual for a beauty school. You see all kinds of characters. And that started to open the door to Violet. And me starting to realize that it was time that Violet came back. It was time for me to start living my truth. And I think that was the catalyst for me. It was all those positive experiences that were starting to happen that really brought me back to where I needed to be. And I also realized that right now is the perfect time to come forward, because my life experiences may help someone else who is living in the closet, be it a young person or someone who is much older than me, who's always lived their life in the closet and not been their authentic self. And you can't live your life for other people. You have to live it for yourself. And I finally came to that realization. So maybe 2 months after I graduated from the program, with my cosmetology license in hand, I was working at a salon, and I just this is it. Which is exactly the way it happened the first time. This is it. We're gonna start living as a female again. The only difference at this point now is that I am actually transitioning for real this time, and I am going through all the processes. I'm getting hormone therapy, I'm getting psychological therapy, I'm going through all the requirements, and I am on the cusp of having my name legally changed on all my documents, as well as my gender marker. I am feeling amazing. I am finally really realizing my true self. Although yes, I did live as a woman for 10 years, those 10 years were not at a good time in my life. They gave me valuable experience, but I think that even though it wasn't a choice I wanted to make willingly, I am happy that I did detransition and live my life as a contributing member to society for that 16 years, because it gave me perspective, and it made me realize that even though Marvin is not what you physically see on the outside, Marvin is a part of who I am, and I can't get rid of that part of me. He is a valuable asset. He is what's kept me going at times. I would tell Marvin to be patient, keep your chin up, and really truly believe in yourself, and things will get better for you in the end. And that the best years of your life are ahead of you. Because I can truly say that these last 2 or 3 years of my life have been the best years of my life. Hopefully, I will be, my true goal really is to be a motivational speaker. I really want to be a motivational speaker for the LGBTQIA+ community. I want to be out there sharing my story, helping others to realize their true self, and to help other people realize that you are not alone and you are not the only one out there experiencing this, that there are thousands upon thousands of people out there who are going through the exact same thing that you are, and you are not alone. I think that the best advice for anyone who is experiencing things such as I, that you find a support system, and it does not have to be your family. It can be your chosen family, but find that at least that one person out there who really believes in you and truly sees you for who you are, and help them to guide you. And there is help out there. I think that that is one of the hardest things for anyone going through this to understand, is that there are organizations out there. It's just very hard to find them, but find them, do your research. Don't stop. Don't let anyone tell you not to continue with your search, because I think that was the one thing that was the hardest for me, is that I kept telling people that you're never going to succeed, you're never going to be able to do this, you're never going to be able to afford this, you're never going to be able to find someone that's going to help you do this. And you got people telling you that you don't know what you're doing. And honestly, they're wrong. You know who you are inside. And if there's even an ounce of a question within you about your identity, and you think that you might be non-binary, or you may fit somewhere on that binary that's different than what you were naturally born at, that there is help out there for you, and that you are actually truly feeling something authentic. And if you're questioning, you need to find someone to help you. Thanks everyone for coming and listening to my story. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and also hit that bell icon and to get all the other information from the sanctuary. If you'd like to tell your story, get in contact with the sanctuary and they'll get you on your way.